Welcome, y'all. Here we are. We are officially in this spring cycle now. And as you are going to see, we had this rest cycle. And I know it can seem like, we weren't doing a whole lot because it's a rest and we were doing not a whole lot for 12 weeks. But now we're moving into this new cycle. Spring is here. The energy is rising. It's time to work, y'all. All right. So week 2 now. Coming in hot. So remember, this is year 1. This is the rest. And for any newcomers in here, so the way, kind of the big scheme of this program, it's a 4-year quad. And so we break that, when we use cycles of 4 to periodize. So we have a rest cycle, we have a prep cycle, we have a build cycle, and we have a peak cycle. So that works at the big level of the 4 years, and then we use the same idea coming down into the week to week. So this is a rest year that we're in right now. It's a prep quarter. This is the spring, and you also learn too that those different phases, rest, prep, build, peak, also correlate with a lot of different elements, like the seasons, even different elements of nature, like water, air, fire, earth, different directions, even like a medicine wheel, if you've ever heard of like an Indian medicine wheel, Native American medicine wheel. So I won't get into all that right now, but we're in the prep quarter, and within the quarter, again, same thing. We have the 4 phases, so we're in the prep phase, and then now we're in the prep week, because each phase has 4 weeks. And so we get a week for each one of the different stages or each one of the different elements of the program. Okay, so this week's the average for the numbers, which the first number is volume, the second number is density, the third number is intensity. So we got a 5 out of 5 volume, a 4 out of 5 density. And density is like kind of easiest way to think of it is time under tension, the amount of reps you're doing or the amount of time that you're doing something for. And then it's a 1 out of 5 intensity. So a lot of reps and a lot of volume, as you'll see, but overall the intensity is not going to be very high. The amount of weight and overall pushing yourself isn't going to be as high. And a key thing just to note real quick with the numbers is we use them specifically, and we give you, specific numbers and variables to work with, but underlying it is really an intention. So, like the intensity, even when you're doing the exercise itself, if it's a 1 out of 5 intensity, like yes, you can look at that as a certain percentage of your 1 rep max, but even easier is you can just have that mentality and that attitude and that approach of, I'm going to approach this as a 1 out of 5 and allowing that to be your gauge. Because again, depending on where you're at, depending on a lot of different factors, how you're feeling that day, that 1 could be a little heavier or that 1 might be a little lighter, but the intention is there. Okay, so all that being said, just to catch everybody up to speed, because I know we got some newcomers in here, let's hop into it. Take it away, Coach TJ.
What's up, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. Hope you enjoyed some rest, but we gotta get back to it, as they say. So, weakness day, first day of the week. All right, we're building on top of what we started with. Also, a little bit of snatch work in terms of a complex. We have a snatch pull. Okay, so from the ground, going into that pull, you come down then into a below the knee hang power snatch. I'm going right past my knee, coming up to the top, catching it high above the head for the power snatch. All right, then I have a snatch balance. So I'm going to drop that bar back onto my back, hands on nice and wide, dropping underneath that bar explosively for the snatch balance. And then I'm going to finish with some overhead squats. We got 5 sets of those together at a 1 + 2 + 1 + 2. So 1 snatch pull, 2 power snatches, 1 snatch balance, and then 2 overhead squats. If it sounds like a lot, it's because it is. But don't worry, we'll be there with you. Make sure you guys know how to do it and then how to properly progress so everything's smooth. Okay. Exercise number 2. All right, we're gonna do a low block power clean. So those low blocks are on the ground, bar starting from there. Power clean means I'm catching it high, focusing on that turnover, elbows nice and high for that power clean. Then I go into a front squat, After that, going to a squat jerk. All right, so I'm dipping down, right, for a jerk, dropping underneath into a low squat with the bar above my head. Then I've got a power jerk, so I'm dropping a little bit, not quite as low, all right, catching with a power stance, and then I do a split jerk to finish that one off. So once again, 5 sets at 2, so 2 power cleans, 2 front squats, 1 power jerk, 1 squat jerk, 1 power jerk, and then 1 split jerk. Yes, I haven't got a race there.
Go get you a little 5. We got a 5.
Oh,
right
there we
here.
go. Yep, and then it's the W. Yep, perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And then once again, 5 by 5 at a 1 intensity. Okay. Next, moving on.
5 by 10 on that boy.
No, we skipped that. Oh, that's always the good mornings. Whoops.
Oh,
yeah, there
wait.
we go. 5 by 10 for the good mornings. Yep. All right. So the next exercise, because again, we're focusing on the weaknesses of the power lift. So one thing we came to a conclusion of is that the good morning is going to translate into a lot of different things, but mainly the deadlift. All right. So SSB, banded good morning. So the SSB bar is the one that you hold with the handles that sits on your shoulders. And banded means you're going to put bands on, tying to the ground or to that bottom part of the rack. So it's going to help add some extra tension, some extra resistance. And I'm going for that good morning. So I'm bending over at the waist, pushing the hips back, keeping that nice neutral spine down to control with that with the SSB support. And we're going 5 by 10 on those, a little higher volume, getting ready for the test, which is going to be obviously a higher volume. So that's at a 1 intensity as well. Weighted push-ups, same idea, building up the capacity in the chest and the shoulders for those bench presses that we're going for 20. So if you can't do weighted push-ups, then just focusing on your push-up form, because either way, you're still going to be working the shoulders and the chest and the triceps, still building up the capacity. So ideally, get some weight on there, but do what you got to do. Okay, 5 by 10 at a 1. Once again, tire flip, all right, because we got those flips for the quest. And 5 by 10, talking to Coach Nate earlier, he was saying, try to get them basically as quick as you can, right? Like, so you can, if you need to use that, one of the smaller tires, that's fine. But I'm talking about getting nice and low, making sure your body position is good now, because you don't want to see, any of this motion where your people are around on their backs. Get nice and low, bend those knees, load it up like you're going to do like any other movement, right? Where everything is in a good proper position, and I'm exploding through the legs and the hips, getting that tire flipped and going to the right to the next flip for 10 reps in a row. 5 sets of that at a 1. All right, That's day 1, weakness day. Singing over to Coach Nate for specific day.
All right, and with the tire flips too, because I started doing, I do strongman. I've done different strongman competition. That was really the first thing that I got into. So with the reps, you can focus on trying to get a flow. It's really just like with all the other lifts, like the Olympic lifts, getting a nice flow and rhythm with the technique first. That's what's ultimately going to help you be faster. So tire flip, obviously a little simpler movement, but even still, you'll notice even how you lift it and push it over, that if you can get it to land right, it won't wobble around, which then makes it easier to transition to the next one. Because for the Spring Quest, it's going to be as many reps as you can within a certain time frame. And so really establishing a nice rhythm with the flips is going to help translate to getting the most amount of reps that you can. Okay, so going now into day 2, this is the specific day. And another little note for anybody new here. These different days, as you can see, they're focused on different things. And there's a fancy term that I made up. It's called priority or specificity prioritization, which essentially means, based on what you're trying to get better at, when you do the thing that you're trying to get better at, that's the best way to get better at that thing. And in strength conditioning, they call it the SAID principle. SAID, specific adaptation to imposed demand, which essentially is just like what I said. What you do, you get exactly better at that specific thing. So if you want to get better at snatch and clean and jerk, you should do snatch and clean and jerk. And even more specifically, if you want to get better at lifting 1 rep to the highest weight that you can with the snatch and clean and jerk, then you should probably do heavy singles, lifting as much weight as you can for 1 rep, doing snatches and clean and jerks. Okay, so just that idea is really what we base wherever we're at in the program. So that's the test. So that's like the number 1 priority is the test. because that's specifically the thing that we're trying to get better at. And right now, the test, with the test too, it's a representation of the outcome of the program. So the outcome of this current cycle that we're in right now is building your capacity for hypertrophy and strength. And so the way that we are physically representing that as a way to test and assess and train is a 20 rep max back squat, bench, deadlift. So essentially a powerlifting total, but the powerlifting total with 20 rep max. So that's the test. And then the second priority from the test, again, this is how we base the days. The second priority would be the weakness. The third priority would be the strength. The fourth priority would be accessories. Fifth priority is more specific training. And sixth priority is technique, like specific isolated technique work. And then the seventh priority is just resting. And funny enough, amazingly enough, it just works out so that we can have each day representing each one of those priorities. And then depending on how many days that you're training can be how many of these days that you're actually doing. But because it's set up in levels of priority, you're still, even if you just did one day of training and you did the most important day, you're getting the most that you can out of just a single day of training. And the same thing, I added 2 days, I'm doing the 2 most important days, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. Okay, so all that being said, our specific day that we are on, the average for the day, we talked about the numbers, is a 5-5-1. 5 volume, 5 density, 1 intensity. And this is a specific day, so we're literally doing specifically what we were trying to get better at. So, and we've got 5 exercises here. As you can see, with the numbers for the day, we just make it simple by just carrying over to, if it's a 5 volume, we'll do typically 5 different blocks of exercise. 4 volume, 4 different blocks, okay? So 5 blocks of exercise, so we got some room here. So we're going to do basically a super total today. So we're doing a snatch first, and this is 5 by 5, 5 sets of 5 reps at a 1. Clean and jerk, 5 sets of 5 reps at a 1. Back squat, 5 by 5 at a 1. And I mentioned this, and if you're watching this YouTube and you're not on our Instagram, Optimal Evolution Instagram, go hop on there, because on there is where I kind of go through more of the day-to-day. And I kind of give more nuanced feedback about the different approaches for these different exercises. So in regards to where we're at right now in the test, what variation you do here, do the variation of the lift that is ultimately going to help you in the most in the long run. So that means essentially if you're weaker at high bar than you are at low bar, but if you get better at high bar, it's going to help your low bar, then do the high bar for this test, which is what I'm doing. And then with the bench press, you can play around with your grip. If like for me, if I get stronger with a closer grip, it helps me with my competition grip. And so I'm training with a closer grip. Even though it's weaker overall, it's going to help me get stronger for the other thing. And then for the deadlift, I'm in competition for most amount of weight. I do sumo, but I know that my conventional is weaker, and my conventional has a good translation to my sumo, especially with the areas that I break down at. And so I'm doing the conventional deadlift for this test. Okay, so I wanted to kind of answer that question. And yeah, so squat, bench, deadlift, 5 by 5 by a 1. Everything is like that for the specific day. So now, back to you, buddy. Day 3.
Day 3. All right. Going to strength focus. 4, 3, 2. All right. Starting it off. All right, running it back. So some strength. We're going to do some high block snatches. So, okay, it's a different position, much higher. Focusing on that. Focusing on like finishing through the pull. Obviously, it's a little tricky because some of us maybe haven't done it maybe we've done low blocks, maybe we haven't, or maybe in the medium blocks, but high blocks is a lot more rare and it's a lot more tricky because there's not enough time. You don't have enough, time to kind of like build it up, anticipate. So it's going to really hopefully translate for a lot of you with that top position when you're turning over with the snatch. So looking forward to watch you guys do that, okay, and being a part of that. So high block snatches 4x3 at a 2, so a little bit heavier, okay, challenging ourselves. In general, everyone, obviously we have our warm-ups that we do that we're basically trying to get you guys more ingrained with certain movement patterns. But take your time, take ownership of your warm-up too. Like when you get that ball in your hands, play around. Like make sure don't just feel like you got to go right into the movement. Sometimes you got to still even prime the body for those movements specifically. So, take that bar, do some overhead, you know what I mean? Get comfortable with what you're doing because that's going to allow you to take ownership of that movement for the day. So high block snatches 4x3 at a 2, okay? Then I got high block clean, same thing. Focusing on that, top end turnover 4x3 at a 2. Then we got jerk from the blocks. Okay, so we're setting up those blocks, either the same blocks that you want to use. Just make sure that it's high enough to where you can get underneath the bar, go right into that rack position. So whether you use the wood or you use those black, more metal blocks, whatever you prefer, just about, comfort getting in and out of that position. And we finish it off with a superset, okay, more of a circuit, I suppose. 3 exercises, okay, 2 rounds, each is at 6 reps. Okay, we start with the pull-up. Then we go into a Cossack squat. So if you don't know what that is, basically feet are nice and wide. Essentially, it's a lateral, kind of like a lunge, but you're staying in one position. You're not lunging. You're stepping, and you're doing literally a lateral squat, opening up those hips, going back and forth for the Cossack squat. Then a Swiss ball Russian twist. You're going to be on your back on that Swiss ball, and you've got you can have them do the plate.
Yeah, you can use a plate, or if some people may not even need to use that.
Right.
So then you can get your little BB gun out.
And focusing on that rotation on the Swiss ball. 6 reps for the pull-ups, 6 per side for the Cossack squat. So back and forth 6 times, and then 6 times on each side for that Russian twist. And again, that's 2 rounds, and that is your strength day. All right. Technique.
All right. So technique's pretty simple. All we're going to do is, and again, this is day 6, so many may not even get on this day if you're not doing 6 days of training per week. But either way, if you are choosing to do this day, this is just going to be bar work, and it's going to be specific to the test and also specific to kind of just the overall performance. And so you're going to do bar work with the squat, bench, and deadlift, but unlike this specific day, this bar work, do your competition style. So, you're still kind of just hinting on the very specific related to, whatever is going to be your thing that you can do the best performance with. So, yeah, whatever your competition style is, do that. So we're still touching that. And then accessory?
Yep. Accessories, you see, we got 5 of them, boy, and we decided to take it a little.
Yeah.
It's if you thought we weren't doing enough volume, I'm sure you'll have a different opinion after this week, all right? Because at the end of the day, guys, we're talking about capacity, so we're talking about really, we talked about it before we started recording, but broadening the back, giving you guys as much access to all the different tools that you may need and whatever you decide to take on, all right? But starting off, all right, we got a superset with the yoke walk and a farmer's carry. So the yoke is that big apparatus that you kind of get underneath and then you hold it and you're going to stand up. It's a big frame. If that is in itself too heavy, you think you want to do maybe use a what is it called, the trap bar or something like that, if they can't do.
Well, they're doing farmer's carry, so that would kind of so that'd be more like
maybe a barbell.
Yeah, like a barbell on your back or the axle bar.
Yeah.
On your back, put a little weight on there.
Either way, loading the spine is the main thing. So if it's a bar or axle bar, whatever is going to be the most efficient for you. And the farmer's carry, which is ideally with those 2 big farmer frames. But again, if that's out of your realm, then the trap bar frames or heavier dumbbells, we'll kind of figure it out. But so anyways, 4 sets of each at 200 feet for both. So that's down and back for both. So you'll probably have the yoke or whatever you're using for that variant right next to the farmer's carry stuff, because you're going to go down all the way down the turf and come all the way back, and then get to the next thing and do the same thing back and forth. So a little spicy for sure, but those loaded carries are so good for just keeping your building the core strength, building the gait patterns, like just making you a very solid overall individual. So yeah, that's on a 1 too. So just make sure we're getting the form down right now is the main thing. Okay, next we got a circuit. We got some seated cable rows with a reverse cable chop. All right, focusing on some rotation. And then we got dumbbell rear delt flies. Okay, those are each 3 sets at 12. So you just go through each of them 3 times, 12 reps a piece, pushing a little bit, but at a 1 still, so just making sure that everything feels smooth. Okay, then we got another circuit. And we got, so again, 3 exercises. Bulgarian split squats. Okay, so you'll get your foot elevated on like a bench or like a block, whatever. And we got, you want to do dumbbell in each hand?
Yeah, although, you may not even need a dumbbell. And on the other side of that, if 12 reps on one leg is a lot, which for a lot of people that is a lot, you can use like a PVC pipe to take a little weight off.
Sure.
So you can kind of go both ways. Yes, if you need to add weight, some dumbbells. If you need to take weight off, you can use a PVC pipe.
Different ways to skin a cat. All right, so, split squats, 3x12 on each side, okay? And then the hammer curls as well. So, just keeping those palms facing each other, going up to about shoulder height with those dumbbells.
Yeah. And a little like more kind of bodybuilding trick is don't go all the way down to your side with the dumbbells. Have your stop position kind of be right in front of your thighs. Because that way you're keeping tension on the biceps.
Tension is how those muscles begin to grow. And then lying dumbbell tricep extension. So lying on your back, those 2 dumbbells are here. At your head, then we're just going to extend them using those triceps. And that can look, again, a little different based on your mobility and like different other capacity type of things. So again, 3 sets for all those. 12 reps for each.
Same one with that one, same idea. So you're going to be lying on the bench. So see how, the weight's right in front of my shoulders. So if you start, and this would be my starting point that my elbow is pointing at. So I can make my elbow, and this will even get the lats in there a little bit too. Kind of make the, 20, 30 degrees. So start with the elbows a little closer to your head and then stay at that angle. So again, little stuff you can play around with.
Sure.
All right, other side.
This one was so big we had to use both sides of the whiteboard, gang. All right. So last 2 little pieces here. Okay. So the next one is a little conditioning in there with the jump rope, some Swiss ball jackknife, and some med ball slams. Okay. So just a little more capacity, a little bit of skill work, and some core involved as well, some power production with the med ball slams. 3 sets of each, 90 seconds straight for all 3 of them. So I'm jumping for 90 seconds. All right, if the singles are a little easy, you can try some double unders maybe, right? Or even just give yourself the freedom to just practice for 90 seconds, all right? If your jump rope is like, I'm not really good at it, then again, just let go of what you think it's supposed to look like and just play around for 90 seconds, okay? Jackknife is when your feet are on the Swiss ball and I am driving my knees underneath my chest, focusing on like those lower abs. And again, if that, skill-wise, we can do like a mountain climber or just,
Where you can put a smaller Swiss ball under your chest because you'll be in a push-up position. That's a way to modify the jackknife.
Helpful. And then med ball slams, everybody can do that. Just change the med ball size if I need to, but coming down, going above the head, coming down, nice and low, explosive movement. Okay, last one. Sorensen hold. So that is on the GHD, and you are pretty much just lying like fully like extended, pretty much parallel, very, very recruiting of like the glutes and the hamstrings and the lower back. And we're just holding it, right? If you're feeling like that's just a little too easy and you just want to be a glutton for punishment, you can hold the weight while you're doing it. But I think just the body weight for 90 seconds is probably going to cook most of us. So and if you have to take a break in between, right? If you have to like come down and like reset, that's totally fine. We don't expect no, 100%. That's hard. So we expect everybody to probably have to like reset a couple times. But ideally, right, longer term, see these again maybe, and then like it'll be like, hey, can I hold it the whole time? Can I hold it at least half the time? Can I go 45 seconds without taking a break? Things like that. Just finding ways to make sure that you're growing in that way. And then we have a supine lateral ball roll. Back is flat on that Swiss ball. All right, you can have like a PVC pipe in your hands to keep you, elongated. And I'm just shifting back and forth, keeping my hips up and trying not to dip or rotate So back and forth for those.
Yeah, and hold it 3 seconds on each side.
Oh.
Because with the Swiss ball lateral roll, the kind of the primary workout, like when you're actually doing the exercise, is when you're on the end of the ball. So you kind of just want to hold those for a little bit.
Yep. And the last one is kneeling on the Swiss ball. Again, that's wherever you are. If you can kneel on it, great. Okay. If it's more like I'm playing around, again, just trying to get on the ball, just trying to, you know what I mean? Like just for these, for like the jump rope, like the Swiss ball, even like honestly, most of these, like you just give yourself permission to just give it a try. It doesn't have to look any type of way, but just good, try to just play around with it. Because that's how we were able to do it, is just giving ourselves that freedom to just try and like play around and, give yourself a time to just figure it out. Okay. All right. Last day.
Yeah. And one of the reasons behind all these different kinds of exercises, and how you'll also see even week to week, like there's just going to be a lot of different kinds of things that we're doing, because we have the novelty test is going to be coming up, and I believe that's going to be the week of May 3rd. So, like 3 weeks essentially, that's going to be coming up. So that's essentially going to be a random workout where we're going to draw upon these different parameters and just whatever it is. So in preparation for that, because again, we don't know what it's going to be, we're doing a lot of different things to just build that capacity for being able to do whatever we're called upon, which is life. Okay? And lastly, our test day. So again, this is like top priority, the main day where we really gauge our progress. Okay? And like I already mentioned, that is going to be a 20 rep max squat, bench, and deadlift, 20 rep max powerlifting total. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to test those. And it's just going to be one set. So this day too is, we have these numbers, but because the test is very specific, again, this is where the underlying intention is as well. But because the test is very specific, that's where we, in a sense, can break the rules sometimes. But a lot of the reasoning behind the numbers and stuff too is so that if you're watching this, or as you're kind of going through this, and why we like to add little teaching points here and there, because you can kind of learn the principles of these things, and you can take the same format and you can create your own program, and like know that you have a blueprint, you have a framework that is relatively reliable, which at the same time being flexible to meet your needs. So you can come up with what's your own test, because maybe you're not necessarily getting ready for the spring quest and like doing the life games, which is really what the whole program is based around. But you can take whatever your goal, maybe you've got a CrossFit competition coming up, maybe you've got some kind of like race or something coming up. So you can take the same format, the same framework, and say, well, what would be, if I have this thing coming up, what would be a good test for that thing? And maybe that's like, I have a mile run coming up, just as an easy example. And so then the test is like, okay, how do I know if I'm going to get better at a mile run? Well, mile run is short enough to where you can do that pretty frequently. So you can just test your mile run. And you can do that, and then you got to determine, okay, how frequently am I going to test my mile run? And well, I'll test it once a week. Okay? So then it's like, now you have your test, and then you can use the specificity prioritization. So you can go from the test to the weaknesses. So what are my weaknesses related to my mile run? Maybe my stride is off. Maybe my breathing needs some work, or I need to kind of establish a good pace and a good rhythm. And that's where you can even take the test itself, which is really what we do with the program as well. You can take the test and break it down into components. So like, what are the different components of a mile run? Again, like you have your stride, you've got your pace, you've got your breathing, you have these different components of running. And then you can determine what are the weaknesses here? And what are the strengths here? What am I already good at, but I know if I get better at those things, it's just going to help me be overall better. Those are the strengths. What kind of accessories, is like what things are going to help support my ability to continue to do the tests. So that's where a lot of like just corrective type stuff, and a lot of doing different planes of movement if what you're testing is very in one plane. Okay. And then you have specific, which is, like depending on how much you're dedicating to training for this, you can do more specific work related to the test. So again, we can go on and on about that kind of stuff, but just to give you an overall idea of different ways that you can approach this, as well as just follow the damn program and you'll be doing all right. Okay?
Whoa!
So one set of 20 for each of those, and it's at a 3 out of 5 intensity. So you're gonna push it a little bit, but this is gonna be the second week doing this test now. So after the first week, you got a little bit of just a taste, kind of a feel of where things are at. Just figuring out, okay, what even is a 20 rep max and what does that feel like for me? And now it's at a 3, so a little higher intensity. We can kind of bump it up a little bit, start to build some momentum here. But as you're warming up, that's kind of part of the strategy as well. Because you don't want to warm up with too many reps and burn yourself out, but you also don't want to go from like, I'm just doing singles and then all of a sudden you're doing a 20 rep max, because that might not work as well either. So you'll have to play around with that a little bit. And obviously, that's why we're there in person, to kind of guide you through the process and help you try different things. But yeah, so 1-1-1, one set of 20 squat, bench, and deadlift. And then, because part of the spring quest is being able to identify different native species in this, at least in our ecosystem here. And so we don't have these yet. Don't stress out about this too much, but just so you can get an idea, I'm going to work with Johnny Nature and we're going to create like some flashcard kind of deals, okay? And then, so part of the test day, to, again, a specific preparation for the spring quest, which is the culmination of this current cycle that we're in, we're going to have 3 rounds of studying your flashcards. So better get to knowing your native plants. I still got a lot. I don't know shit, so I'm going to be learning a lot too through this process. Okay? So, and again, for the newbies here, as you can kind of see too, we have these different elements that we incorporate where, yes, it is, you're doing a lot of working out and it's a lot of physical stuff, but there's also kind of even a bigger picture behind the bigger picture of, having different education and like mental, emotional management, having these different tools for life. And that's where, if you are called to even take this a step further, that's what gets into the optimal evolution pathway, which essentially is an educational pathway that helps you to really integrate all of this for yourself and then gives you other tools to help support this whole process. Okay. So yeah, so if anything, I would invite you to go create a free membership in the Life Collective Nation. That's good. You're going to find a lot of good resources there. That's kind of like the archive and connection point and container for all of this stuff. And then if you want to take it a step further, that's when you'd be looking at the optimal evolution pathway and getting into our next cohort, which, well, this is springtime right now. So the next cohort would be the summer cohort. They run the educational pathway coincides with the training program. It all kind of blends together. Okay. Yeah. And then obviously day 7, on the 7th day, the Lord rested. So we rest, but being that it is a 3-2-1, so it's a 3 out of 5 volume, 2 out of 5 density, 1 out of 5 intensity. It's active recovery. So again, if you're like feeling beat up, and just really, really sore, yes, have that space for yourself. It is rest. So if you are just, man, I'm just chilling today, just go ahead and chill. But if you got a little extra energy, opening up the door for some active recovery. Maybe that's going on a hike out in nature. Maybe that's like going to, play like pickleball or going to do some other kind of sport. Or maybe outside, like gardening, doing yard work, just, moving the body, whatever that looks like for you, having fun with it. And there it is, y'all. Another week of programming. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this makes sense and is valuable for you all. And let TJ take you home. And that's it.
I mean, just, we talk about a lot, everyone, but just keep your heart open, keep your head open, just being willing to take on new things and try new things, and just know that it might take some time. And again, we talked about giving yourself permission to just play around. Like, it could be with the training, it could be your personal life or other hobbies maybe you're taking on, but hopefully this stuff, like the work, allows you to improve yourself, but also give you a chance to like take things that you can take into the rest of your life. 'Cause that's what it's real. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like being healthy, being functional, active human beings, which is just a part of like your well-being, but also gives you the tools to go take on whatever life's throwing at you at your job or your relationships or, you know, whatever's going on. So just, you know, just be patient with it and just enjoy it. Like it's people, we take life a little too seriously when we can be urgent, but also just have a good time, right? Love you guys. See you soon.
Blessings, friends.